Hi, thank you for joining me, and today's video is going to be about the best year and the worst year that you could have bought a home in. And it's not quite as clear cut as it might first come across, but we'll look at the details later in the video. And there's nothing in life more important than owning your own home, except perhaps being in a loving and caring relationship. But owning a home, it's all important. You know, it'll provide you with the stability and the security that you want. You have freedom to do what you want. And you don't have to seek permission off anyone to just do what you want in your own home. It's a place that you can call yours. And it'll give you such an amazing feeling to own your own place in comparison to having the insecurity of being kicked out of a place that you rent. And let's be honest, who wants to live in an area where everyone rents? These areas are people that don't have a stake in society. If you own a home, you have a stake in society. You look after things more, and you're going to be living in a much nicer and safer area. So owning a home, it's very important. And let's have a look, to begin with, at the average UK home price since 1982 to 2023. And as you can see, 1982, 24,800 bought you an average home. In 2023, it took 264,900, thereabouts. The trend is it always goes up. Of course, you can see there that in 1989, when it was 61,000, the houses went down to about 51,000. So there are years where things can go down. That's a drop of 16% you would have been in negative equity for. And that happened again in 2007, where you can see the house price is 181,000 and it dropped to 163,000 in 2012. So a house price dropped 14% there. That's a big drop. But as you can see, if you've got enough time on your hands, it'll just keep going up. And the other thing that keeps going up is the UK salary. So this is the chart before deductions, so the gross pay. And in 1982, the average annual UK salary was 5,613. And if you look at 2023, it's 30. Well, let's just call it 35,000. Is your average. But for the purposes of this video, I don't like looking at the gross pay, and so instead I painstakingly went through all the different years and what the tax allowances were, the tax rates, and what the national insurance payments were. So on this chart, it's the UK salary, but your actual take-home pay that you would have got. So in 1982, your take-home pay would have been 3,893, and in 2023, your take-home pay was 27,797. I mean, this is the UK average. And as you can see, it goes up every single year, apart from, I think, maybe 2010 or something. Basically, it's only really ever going to go up. Okay, and on this chart, we've got the amount of income needed to reach the 40% tax threshold. So you can only, you might just earn £1 more, and then you'll suddenly be just on that cusp of the tax bracket. So as you can see, in 1990, you would have needed to earn 20,700. 1991, 23,700, and up and up it goes. Although 2013, you only needed to earn 32,000 in order to be in that 40% tax threshold. And today, or 2023, it's at 50,270. So I think a lot more people are being sucked into that tax bracket. But we'll have a look and see how 40% taxpayers have fared against housing in comparison to, well, from years gone by. Right, so on this chart, we've got the ratio of average salary after tax and national insurance, so your take-home pay, versus the average home price by year. So in 1982, it took 6.38 times your take-home pay to buy a home. This is an average worker. As you can see, 1996 was by far the best year. When you take home pay, it took 5.13 times that to buy an average home. And the worst year was 2007 at 10.75 times what your take home pay is to buy an average home. Today in 2023, well, last year I should say, 9.53. So it's not far away from being the worst. But just to give you a comparison of what that would mean, if you were able to buy a home in 1996 at that kind of a price, that would mean your take-home pay for an average worker would be $51,637, to be the same as someone in 1996. And that's as an average worker. Or to look at it another way, an average home would cost just £142,000 and 598 pence. That is incredible. You'd save £122,000. It'd be a home at 46% less money. It really is amazing. I can't understand how people can ever retire when they have to pay so much for a home in comparison to the people that worked in the 1980s and 1990s. It's really incredible. Something else I find incredible is looking at the 40% tax bracket and how the people who were just on the cusp of hitting that bracket, how they fared. The thing to remember is in the 1990s, maybe about less than 1 in 20 people that paid tax paid into that tax bracket. Now that figure's gone up and up, so more people are being dragged into that tax bracket now. But when we look at the ratio of a worker just hitting that bracket, so again, after tax and national insurance, your take-home pay, in 2023, your take-home pay would be just under £40,000. Now, if you compare to something like the 1990s, where you could buy a home for roughly about just under 3 times your take-home pay, it's basically you're buying a home in the old money for about 120,000. Incredibly cheap. But if you look at 1996, which was a particularly good year for people on the 40% tax bracket, you would basically, in today's money, your actual take-home pay would be close to £96,000. There's no doubt that the 1990s were very, very good years to be a 40% taxpayer. Although 2016 was a particularly bad year, given that a lot of people were paying into that tax bracket that shouldn't have been. Okay, so on this chart here, we're going to look at is how it would have felt 6 years after purchasing your home, what the percentage increase or decrease in value you would have experienced. You can see straight off that if you bought your home in 1998, then 6 years later, your home has gone up 127%. I mean, you're going to feel pretty damned happy with that. I think any year where it's close to 100% increase in value after 6 years, you're going to feel pretty comfortable paying your mortgage, knowing that you're paying for a home that's worth double the price that you paid. Although, having said that, there's some particularly nasty years. So you bought your home in 1988, 89, 1990. You're gonna, after 6 years, what you would have felt like is pretty depressed, I would imagine. The same as in 2006, 2007. Pretty nasty years. You would have felt pretty bad after 6 years. And since 2007, there's never been any 100% rises in 6 years. It's always sort of the mid-20s. So the real good years to have bought a home, 82, 83, 84, and then 95 to sort of 2001. Absolutely phenomenal years to have bought a home. And after 6 years, you would have been, I don't know, I couldn't imagine what that would feel like. It would feel pretty good, I would imagine. But let's have a look at the other chart, which is 10 years after purchasing your home. Where would you have been at that point in time? and you can see just what an amazing difference it makes. I mean, 1989, after 10 years of buying your home, you've basically got a home that's worth 16% more. And that's basically the same in 2007 as well. Your home is worth 16% more. So finally, at least, you've got your mortgage and you're paying for something that's at least worth more money than what you paid for it. But imagine how good it would have felt to have bought a home in 95, 96, 97, where your home is worth like 3 times what you paid for it. That's incredible. I couldn't imagine what that'd be like in 10 years, and you'd be laughing all the way to the bank if you bought your home in those years. It really is good. In recent years, though, it's not so good. I mean, since basically 2003, it's not been good at all. But yeah, it's interesting to see what the percentage value is after 10 years. Obviously, I can only go up to 2013, unfortunately, so the future's yet to be written on people who bought the home after that time. But at least before then, we can have an idea of what things have happened in the past. Right, so I've got some more charts for you now. Now this is looking at the debt that you've got remaining on the mortgage. So I'm presuming that you've put a 20% deposit down for a 25-year mortgage, and it's your actual take-home pay that's needed as a percentage-wise to clear the remaining debt. So after 6 years, you can see that 1995, 96, it's basically 2.8 times your take-home pay. 1982, 2.83 times your take-home pay. It's a very comfortable position to be in, and you're not going to feel, I don't think you'd feel anywhere near as stressed out as you would in 2006, 2007, when you've got over 6 times your take-home pay to clear the remaining debt. And don't forget, you had to work a lot harder to put down a 20% deposit in the first place. But in any case, I mean, 1989, not so good, I suppose, but it's still better than every other year since 2003. So yeah, it's pretty obvious that 80s and 90s and very early 2000s are very, very good times to buy a home. And I'll look at 10 years. So again, the percentage left that you have to pay out of your net pay would be, well, just under 5 times in 2006 and 2007. Whereas 1982, it's less than 2 times your take-home pay. And 95 and 96, not as good on that measure, but just over 2 times what your net pay is. Yeah. So it speaks for itself, really. Right, so we've got some more charts for you. This is for people who just reaching the 40% tax bracket. And so after 6 years, what percentage of their pay, and this is take-home pay as well, would be needed to pay off the remaining mortgage, again using a 20% deposit and a 25-year mortgage. So you can see the 1990s were a really easy time in comparison to sort of 2005 to 2012. I mean, just to give you a contrast of how easy it is in comparison, it'd be the same as someone who bought a home in 2017 who just hits the 40% tax bracket, and today, or I should say in 2023, it'd be the same as them having just £66,000 left to pay off on their mortgage after 6 years. So it's a big contrast. And again, we'll look at this 40% tax bracket, but from the 10-year perspective. So you can see, the 1990s, it's just over less than 1.5 times what your take-home pay is to clear the mortgage after 10 years. And this is just for a single person. If you run a couple, a mortgage would be no pressure whatsoever. You can see how it drops down in 2009, and that's obviously because the tax bracket went up. They put it up to 50,000. I showed that on another chart, but it does show you that, or demonstrate just how badly ripped off people were being before 2019, and they should never have been on that tax bracket. The 40% income tax bracket really ought to be around about 100,000, just over, to be equal to what it used to be in the 1990s. But yeah, there we go. Okay, I've got one last chart for you, because I just know that people would have been screaming at the other charts saying, yeah, but mortgage rates were far higher in the past, and that's true. They were a lot higher. So the 1980s and 1990s, as you can see on this chart, the mortgage rates were much higher than what they currently are. So with that in mind, you've got to remember that when people go to a bank, they're generally getting the most they can possibly afford to borrow in order to buy a home. So presumably the bank would check to see that it can afford the payments that, if the mortgage rates went a little bit higher. So for example, you took out your mortgage in 1987 and you're on a variable rate. Well, in 1989, your mortgage rate went up to 17.9%, a particularly bad year. And what happened to your monthly payments is your monthly payments went up by 50%, which is pretty bad, anyone would say. But let's just fast forward in time. Now in 2020, you too would have probably borrowed as much money as you could borrow. And if you're on a variable interest rate in 2020 and in 2023, your monthly payments would have gone up by 55%. Basically, pretty similar to what happened, in 1987 to 1989. So it's not unprecedented. It's not unprecedented for that to happen. But I don't look at the mortgage rates as being as bad as what you would think. But you've seen the information the same as me, so you can make your own mind up on what you think the best year is. But this is my conclusion. Right, so as you can see, 1995. But to be honest, that isn't really the best year. Because it's just, the best year is basically as soon as you can. As soon as you can, as young as you can. That's the best year to buy a home. It's far better to have bought a home in 1989 or 2007 when you were young than it is to wait 10 years and perhaps you're 35 or nearly 40 and then buy a home. It's just dumb luck as to what year, if you're on the right age at the right time. And obviously, people who were born in the, late 50s, 60s, that kind of time, were blessed with houses being affordable and all the rest of it. Lower retirement ages. But the fact is, we live in a world now where retirement is just a thing of the past. How can people retire when they've got to spend so much money on housing? And the fact that government are just putting the retirement age up. And the fact is that the migrants coming into the country, it's only going to increase. Whatever they say about reducing the numbers, they aren't going to do that. The pressure on housing is just going to force it up and up. The compounded interest rate on a home since 1982 is just under 6%, which means if you save up money, let's say 10,000, and you're not getting any interest on that, you're being taxed £600 for that. You're losing so much money. Buying a home and owning a home is the only way to set yourself free, to not be a slave. And that's basically all I've got to say. So, thank you for watching.